Aloha and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Got Your Six podcast. This six-question podcast brings together high performers to share their methods, strategies, and ideas, delivered in an informative and, most importantly, actionable way that'll help you lead yourself and those around you from the battlefield to the boardroom. Coming to you every episode, I'm your host, Tony Nash. And into the breach.
Nothing mentioned on this podcast is an endorsement or opinion of the Department of Defense.
I got your six, we got your back. Got your six, we got your back. Got your six, we got your back. I got your six.
Sixers, we have an incredible episode today. Michael Bluemling Jr. is here with me. We talk about somebody that's lived many lives, from the Army, running for Congress. He's just had his hands all over everything. He's seen a lot, been through a lot, and we're just really grateful he's sharing his story today. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate being on Got Your Six, dude. It's such an honor, man. And let's help those veterans in need every chance we get. Let's try to inspire some people, and let's move the needle, man. That's what it's all about. That's why we served our country, and that's why we love America, man. God bless America, and God bless those who served and their families, and God bless the Gold Star families. We got to point that out right at the beginning, because
Absolutely.
Without their sacrifice from all the wars, World War I, World War II. Tell you what, just to start off, I've been traveling the last 6 weeks. I was in Colorado and Tennessee. I kind of fell off the grid a little bit. Purposely. I had, verified Twitter and all that, and it was a lot of fakeness out there, and that's not why I do what I do. But I was hiking the last 6 weeks though in Colorado and Tennessee. The Rockies and the Smoky Mountains, just all over, and just, with my service dog, and we'll get into that. But I stopped in Kansas City at the World War I Memorial, and it's the National Memorial. And it was really fascinating. I didn't even know that there was a National Memorial, and it's the only one in the country, and it's right there in Kansas City. And it was such an honor. And, I'm fourth generation military. I was born in Fort Benning, Georgia. And so it was really cool, because, in our generation of troops, Desert Storm, I was pre and post 9/11, but then, Afghanistan, Iraq, and all that. So we don't really get to see a lot of the heritage, but, we really can't forget those. I mean, thousands of people got killed in World War I and World War II, and just looking at the history of how United States got pulled into the war, it was really fascinating, and something that I recommend to all of your audience to go check that out if they're in the area.
Yeah, absolutely. And you missed one though when you talked about different places, right? Kosovo is a spot that occurred. You were actually in Kosovo, you rose the rank of sergeant. So as we look back kind of on your military service, what's something you typically, implement daily that you took away from your time in the military, especially being fourth generation?
Yeah, no, for me, growing up in a military household, my dad was very strict, and, my story is well documented, but he turned to drugs and alcohol. He was in Vietnam on USS Kitty Hawk, and he just abused my mom and myself. We had a really traumatic childhood, and that's really what taught me the fundamentals. But it was, folding your bed, the four corners, a quarter bouncing off it, growing up in that kind of, really tough. And my dad was on the flight deck. He worked there. And I talk about this sometimes, but I remember looking at his book and seeing all the sailors and just thousands of sailors that were on that ship. And I never thought I was actually going to join the military. But seeing them on that ship, it was just like I was in awe. Like I thought they were all heroes as a little kid, just looking through the books. And I think a lot of that is lost here in society. And we'll get into some of the things I see current issues for veterans and why I ran for U.S. Congress and why I'll probably end up running again in the future. But what I learned most in the military is God, family, country, and duty first. And so I served in the 1st Infantry Division. I was a mechanized infantry non-commissioned officer. And when I served, it's no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great, duty first. I served overseas for 3.5 years, and I was in Macedonia, Kosovo, the K4 operation. I was serving in Germany on 9/11. I didn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan, and I don't think anybody purposely wants to go, but if I was called, I would have done it. But my 4-year enlistment was up December 31, 2001. But what I learned most in the military is that I wouldn't be where I am without the military, and we wouldn't be as a country where we're at without the sacrifice. So, we're in the 1st Infantry Division patch for me. I was recruited for Delta when I was in, Delta Force, and I didn't realize, because when you're in the military, nobody really tells you what that means on the outside. I'm not a height guy. I don't want to really jump out of airplanes. That was never my thing, and but it was something that was interesting to me. But I was so locked in and I didn't know the ramifications. So that's the one thing in the military, even though I made sergeant in 3 years, that's one thing I wish I would have pursued, but I didn't know. And I think that's what we can do as a community, is we can really help each other by sharing information. And that's what I try to dedicate my life to, is helping people who have served our country to better their lives, to help them, give them more information. I think the statistic was 88% of soldiers who have served, only 12% out of 100%, only 12% have graduated with an associate degree, even though we got the GI Bill or the post 9/11 GI Bill. And these are kind of things that are staggering, but a job and your career is what's so critical when you get out of the military. And that's one of the things I really try to put forward. But there's a lot of gaps right now. And also when unfortunately, when a veteran gets out of the military and they're going into the workforce, they're kind of a threat, because civilians don't really understand us. And so that's why one of the things I did when I was hiking in Colorado and Tennessee, I started this thing called Hike with a Veteran. And I believe that, the community really has to understand a veteran. And even though it's 2021, the community really has no clue what a veteran stands for. And I think that's really sad. And so we got to make these changes, but it's kind of hard because there's so much going on that kind of vets get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. So you had that discipline instilled early on, like you talked about, making the corners of beds, the quarter can bounce off of it. And you were really inspired by, those books on your father's shelf. And I know there's a lot to go in there with your dad and yours relationship. And I know you've covered that in depth, but so like, was that the book that really inspired you, that like really greatly influenced your life? Or was there another one or a course or something else that really just kind of inspired you to be who you are today?
Well, what happened was, I grew up in a lot of group homes and foster homes. My family was broken apart. I had a brother and sister that was adopted at birth by one of my aunt and uncles. I don't really talk about that much recently. I mean, I haven't talked about that part of a lot of the trauma that I went through, as far as like I had an adoption in my family. And, as an adult, they're like, oh, that's your cousin. Well, it's really my brother and sister. So I had a lot of trauma. And, growing up in Section 8 housing and just different things that I had gone through, I was like, this is not who I am. And so, going on to have 4 degrees and getting my master's from Pennsylvania State University and doing those things in my younger, like 20s and 30s, it was more about proving something to the world, but it was really proving something to myself, because I had a low self-esteem, quite honestly, because I had went through so much that I really wasn't, sure of myself, and I wanted everybody to like me. And, I think that's what's great about your show, is just, being authentic. And that's what I want to do today, is really, it's about being authentic and really trying to show vets that, not just because all these high level vets, like I ran for US Congress, and there's veterans in US Congress right now who are treating other vets like trash. And that's something that really bothers me. I see a lot of vets out in the space, and just because we're high level vets, I see vets try to monopolize financially off of other vets. And I don't think that's right. So that's something I try to really have in my career. And hopefully people that know me and heard of me and are aware of the things that I'm doing know that nothing I do is for my benefit. When I do something, it's really selfless. And that's something I learned in the military, is have selfless service. And so, yeah, I want to be a millionaire. Yes, I want to have my book sell. But it's not about that. It's really about trying to help a veteran in need, because all it takes is one bad experience or, something traumatic that a veteran is going through. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I'm tired of this. And we all been there. So just because, you've been on TV or on the radio or on podcast, or, I had my own radio show and podcast and doing all the things that I've done, it doesn't make me any better. And I think that's something that as a community we can do better, is we can gel together, because we all have a story. But when we come together, we can really, really lean in on each other versus trying to, cut each other's legs off. And I see a lot of that happening in the veteran space. And that's something that really bothers me.
Yeah. So going back, that selfless serviceness that you talked about, where did that, like I said, is there a book or a course, how that greatly influenced your life? Or where, if you had to kind of pick out one, what would that be?
The main thing that for me is just where I came from. I wanted to be somebody, and like, that's what I was trying to allude to. When I was younger, I was trying to be somebody, and it was an outward thing, but then I matured and I grew up and I really realized where my core was. So I don't think it was a book. It was more my circumstance. It's actually what I was going through, what I endured, what I lived through. And I think one of those things, it's like, I think a lot of veterans are misunderstood when they come back into society, is because people don't really, that's what I was getting to too.
Yeah.
People don't really understand them. And so it's kind of hard to talk to somebody, or, to have them help you or reach out. A lot of veterans, we served our country. We have great aptitude. We have great skills, and we're marketable, and we want to do great things. I mean, one thing, I was listening to this podcast the other day. It was actually a book. I just started reading it. And actually, let me get the title of it here real quick. It's called Outwit the Devil. But it was for 75 years, this book was held, and it wasn't, public. So I guess through the family and a couple of deaths, they had put this book out. It's by Napoleon Hill. And this guy, way back in the day, he was 3 feet from gold, like a gold miner. And so he was like so close, and he gave it up. He sold it to a prospector or something like that. Somebody else, they did the research, they brought the right equipment in, and then they found the gold. But the guy did that, and he could have just like completely quit, but he ended up creating this insurance company, I guess at the time, that was like super large. So the point is that you could have failure. You could be really close to where you're supposed to be at, but at the end of the day, it's on your perseverance. I think the successes are great, but your failures actually catapult you forward a lot further.
So talking about failure, right? We all have a lot of failures, whether you look at them daily or over a long period of time. What would you say your failure that has ultimately led to your greatest success has been?
Well, it's interesting. My failures, it's not really failures in the sense of I failed. It's more, I didn't have enough resources or financial means or capital to pursue what I was doing. So for example, when I got out of the military, I had my GI Bill post 9/11. It took me 9 years. I met another veteran, Alan Allison. This is again documented information that's out there. But when I met him, he inspired me to go back to college. And so when he did that, I did that. But I had met somebody. I really believe in mentorship. That's something that's really valuable. But so then, I had some capital. I published 3 books. And I did a book signing tour with Barnes and Nobles. I was selling books, like 40 books every book signing. And one of them was Bridging the Gap from Soldier to Civilian, a roadmap to success for veterans. And so this is a book I wrote to help veterans who are transitioning from the military with their mental health, starting a business, going back to school, all those attributes. And, I was in several veteran magazines from that book and had a lot of notoriety, but it wasn't a financial gain. So I didn't necessarily fail, but I didn't reach where I was, trying to get to. But it was still selflessly based. I wasn't really trying. It wasn't about the money at the time, but you need the money. That's the thing. But it's like getting the book in the hands of people that need it to help them in their transition. And so that was a learning experience there, that when you're dealing with bootstrap entrepreneurship, that everybody's trying to put your hand in your pocket. And so that was something that was a great learning experience, because you only have so much capital as an entrepreneur. And if unless you have business partners or someone around you that can really fund you, it's very difficult, and then you're a one-man band too. So I was doing all these things on my own, and, doing social media and marketing and just trying to run my company. But, one success from that is I got audited by the federal government, the IRS, during my 3 or 4 years later, after the company was Power of One was my company. And I ran it from 2013 to 2016, and I got audited by the IRS, and I had the transactions for everything. So so there's some things to gain in there, so even though I didn't gain, like $1 million from the company or anything like that, it was a learning experience. And that's really what led me on to the next chapter of my life and figuring out where I was going next.
Right. And you talked about where you've gone next. I mean, just look at the last 5 years and what you've been able to accomplish, from 2021 all the way back to 2016, right? Like at that pivotal moment. So as you look back, at that 5 years, what would you say is like maybe a new belief or behavior outside of, learning from those failures that has really kind of improved your life?
Well, the main thing I learned, honestly, is that you can't do it alone. As veterans, man, we want to get in there and we, you got your brother and sister to your left and right, and, you rely on each other. But again, when you go in the civilian world, you kind of feel lost. Doesn't matter what your rank is or what you do. Sometimes you can get, it's a big ocean out there and you got to swim in it. It's like Finding Nemo. You got to get out there and you really got to find your way. And what I learned is that I can't do it on my own. And so I really started to branch out and try to form partnerships and get more people included in my ideas and my vision. I'm a big vision guy. I'm a 30,000 feet guy. But you know, I don't. Sometimes it can get really technical. Some of the stuff you got to do, and so that's leads me to now. You know, I ran for U.S. Congress, which was great. But again, I've never done a drug in my life. I've never been arrested. You know, I've really tried to live a clean life. Honestly, I try to do the right thing at the right time, right place. That's what I believe in. And where I came from, it's like when you overcome that, you know, the first time my father tried to kill me was when I was 5, and it's documented. You know, there's newspaper articles about there. I was reported dead on TV. And, you know, when you overcome that, the rest of your life is kind of simple. But, you know, nobody's perfect. Everybody, you know, has, you know, things that affect them and negatively, or they make a decision. They wish they could have it back. But, you know, when I ran for Congress, I had people going out to town halls, and I had people within my party. I ran as a Republican, and I'm a constitutionalist. So I'm fighting for all of our freedoms. That's what I believe in. Just like when we served in the military, I believe in advocating for our freedoms and keeping those freedoms that are in our Constitution. I believe that's our best path forward. But people were going to town halls trying to say I wasn't a vet, and I was, you know, like they were just spreading propaganda against me. You know, I was at CPAC in 2020, right before the pandemic, and I have like 40 interviews. So people are, you know, I can do international interviews, you know, national interviews. It doesn't matter what the topic is. I can pretty much, with my background, talk about any issue. And that's why when I felt like I was going to run for Congress, having worked in Capital Virginia and Richmond for the governor and a bipartisan, running the Virginia Values Veteran Program, helping to create over 30,000 jobs for vets when I did that in 2017. And then I came down to Florida in December of 17. In 2018, I was serving on 4 boards, and I was working in the capital of Florida in Tallahassee. That's how, those kind of experiences after working for the federal government is what kind of realized, hey, there's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. What can I do to make a difference? So getting all that experience in that 5 years and getting to the table, and then having people saying, going to town halls and spreading propaganda that I'm not a vet, that really fired me up. Like, honestly, that really bothered me, because I've done a lot for this country, just like everybody else who served. And, you know, I had a really hard time dealing with that, honestly, especially because they see me out there. Like, it's like when the lights come on, you know how to shine. Like, that's me, man. I've been through it, and I've been really blessed. That's another thing. I give all the glory to God for the things and the opportunities. But again, I want to help other people. So obviously, when you're trying to help other people, good things are going to happen to you, and you're going to be put into position. And sometimes you have to be patient. That's another thing I learned during my whole career and my journey with God and things that I've done, is that sometimes you just have to be patient and wait for the time that it's going to come into your life that you'll be able to make the difference that you're challenged and you're charged to make. So I think those things are really important. So after I ran for Congress, I dropped out of the race. The pandemic hit, and I got a service dog, actually. There was somebody that worked on my campaign.
Shout out to
was
Chanel.
A volunteer, and he was a vet, and he had a service dog, and I had been wanting one for a few years. So I actually took the $1,200 stimulus, because, you know, having a service dog is very, very expensive. And so I took that stimulus and added money, and I got my service dog now, Chanel, and I trained her myself. And when I did that, this opened a whole nother world, because I'm a 100% disabled vet. I had 2 traumatic brain injuries in the Army. I was in a Bradley that flipped over in Germany, and I had a tow missile fell out. Somebody jammed it in a Connex, and it fell on top of my head and busted my head open. So I had 2 TBIs when I was in Germany. So when I got the service dog, it was like I was taking my injuries external, because, you know, I stay in shape, I work out, I compete in Spartan races, but I have degeneration in 3 vertebrates in my neck. So, you know, a lot of vets are out here dealing with things, and you look at them, you think, oh, they're perfectly fine, but you really have no idea what somebody's dealing with. So when I had my service dog and I would take her out and I'm training her and in public, I mean, honestly, it was such a crazy experience, because now I really, even though I've been advocating for individuals with disabilities, I was an investigator for Department of Labor, and I worked in affirmative action, equal opportunity. So I saw how veterans are discriminated against. I saw it firsthand, and how, you know, Americans overall can be discriminated against based on your color or you know, your veteran status, whatever it may be, whether you're trying to get a job or, you know, you're trying to get benefits. And so when I had her, I was like, this is just terrible, because people are looking at you and they're judging you. And having served this country, it's like, wow, you know, I'm getting this dog to help me, but because people have abused the system, it's like a negative. And so that was really hard. I had some things that were really hard to deal with, when I was running for Congress, I felt I could make a really big impact. And then I got a service dog to try to help improve my mental health and what I'm dealing with. And then, you're getting a kickback. So, a lot of things. Then COVID was going on at the same time. So there's so many things going on. So honestly, I had a verified Twitter, deleted that. I just kind of stepped away, and I wanted some time to take for myself and my mental health. And I think, a lot of veterans, we need that. We need to pause for a minute. Even hard chargers and people that are out there in the space and they really want to do great things in the community and make a difference. What I realize is I got to take care of me. And unless I take care of me, then I can't help any other vet. So, that was a big thing. But having Chanel as my service dog has been a blessing. But it is hard. People come up to her. They take a picture without asking me. They come up to her and approach her. It's really something that every vet really probably needs, a service dog, but it's like the public really needs to understand that. And it can be difficult.
Yeah. So that, like what you said there was key, right? Like you need to be able to realize when you need to take a knee and drink some water, right? Because you can't always go as much as you want to serve and help other people. You can't always just be going 100 times because you're going to reach burnout and you're going to have to, and that's bad when other people are like kind of relying on you. And sometimes you have to recognize, hey, it's time for me to take a little bit of a step back, reevaluate this situation, and then move forward. So as you've taken your knee, and it's not just one knee and you're good to go. It's a constant, balance. But where are you looking next? Like, what are you working on? Like, is there a skill, ability, something? What's the next step?
Well, there's a couple next steps. And, obviously like I mentioned, I do want to run for Congress again. Just so information that's out there. I tried to make some appointments at the VA the other day, and basically I was said, well, you have to get a COVID test. I'm not giving a COVID test. I don't, that's not a stipulation for my healthcare. So basically I was denied at the VA recently for my healthcare because I'm not taking a COVID test. So right now there's some health things that are going on in the health field that could negatively affect veterans and their care because of what's going on with COVID, the Delta variant, other things that are out there. So that's something we need to be aware of. I text a couple people that I know in Congress. And so hopefully we can try to do something there, because no veteran should be denied their care based on decisions that they're making. So I think that's something that's right now that's going on that is under the radar. I think is a big deal, because your choices should be respected. I mean, this is America. That's why we serve. No veteran should be forced to feel like, they have to get a vaccine if they don't want to get the vaccine. If a veteran feels like a vaccine is going to work for them, then they should get it, but that's their personal choice. So I think these are big hot topic issues that are going on right now. And I'm going to get back into the fold and advocating and fighting for these issues for our veterans, because it's so important. But what I ended up doing most recently is I'm connecting with my business partner, and we're starting an F-45 franchise on the west coast of Florida. I was in the South Florida for the last 3 years. And so that's where I ran for U.S. Congress in Florida District 21 in 2019-2020 election. And so, that's what I love fitness, and it's always been a passion of mine. I compete in Spartan races. I think that there's a lot of, programs for veterans out there to help them to stay in shape. And that's something that I want to do through the F-45 franchise I'm going to be starting. It's going to be in the Venice, Port Charlotte, Northport area on the west coast of Florida. So if any veteran is in that area, I'm looking forward to trying to, get you into the gym, work out with you, and really connect with people. But hopefully this is going to help create some capital where I can really continue to do the things that I love to do, like writing books, being out in the space and really helping and advocating for veterans. And that's what I'm all about, man. Like me, another thing I learned during that time period is that money doesn't make you happy. I had a lot of success. I've accomplished a lot, but when I was at the top of the mountain, it kind of was like what I was saying earlier. When I was at the top of the mountain, it's lonely up there when you get there alone. You got your rucksack, and you're. For example, when I was a kid, I was like, okay, I had a really tough. I was like, I want to make $100,000 and I want to drive a Mercedes Benz. That was my goal before I joined the Army. Honestly, that was my life goal. I was like, I want to make $100,000. I want to drive a Benz. I want to be somebody like, and so then I achieved those things. And I was like, these goals and these, I'm 43 right now. And this was in my 30s when I started accomplishing a lot of my goals. I really started accelerating. I think in my 20s, it was kind of like a growing up period of my life. And then in my 30s, I was able to really, in those 10 years, really explode. And now I'm 43 and I'm really realizing the importance of what you're doing and how you're doing it and who is impacted by what you do. So, I think we're always growing and developing, and, leadership development is a big part of my mission and what I see that we can do in the foxhole for each other. So, at the end of the day, we're just one person. And, that's kind of goes back to Power of One. That's the company I started. One person could change the world. I believe that then. And I still believe it now, is that, all it takes is one person. You get the community together, you get the people involved, and from there, anything is possible. But we need that in this country. We need patriots. We need people to stand up and fight for our freedoms. And anything I can do with anybody in your audience or any other organization, I'm going to be trying to, obviously be marketing locally here to help vets in this region, getting with police departments, fire departments, first responders, because they're also equally as important. They go through trauma out in the community every day, and it's not easy for them as well. So I think community-based engagement is really important.
No, that's a great point. And, you talked about a lot of different things in there. I want to focus on the development piece, though. So, Michael Bluemling Jr., how are you better than yesterday?
I just feel like, I have more of a support channel. Honestly, I have Chanel, who's my service dog, and this, like, she's laying down right next to me right now in the interview. And for all the hardships that I've gone through, all the sacrifice, I'm divorced 13 years. I have 2 kids. My daughter's 17. She'll be graduating high school next year. And my son is 15. And, I had to make sacrifices. I wasn't able to see them as much as I would have liked, or, the past 15 years of grinding. So, it's bittersweet in some ways. But, the thing is the more people you can help, and really it's about the person you talk to and what that impression leaves on them. And leadership develop, I kind of like, there's some leadership things that are out in this space that I really resonate with me, like Make Your Bed. The book, I think it's a book or whatever, the one military person,
Yeah.
My traumatic brain injury, sometimes I can't remember every detail, but, like Make Your Bed in the morning. I think that's really important. It's like how you start the day, how you, look at life. One of my favorite books is The Secret, like visualizing and seeing things before they happen, just realizing that there's something bigger out there. But at the end of the day, what the most important thing I realized in my life is that for veterans in this space is that if you serve this country and you raised your right hand, that you are a hero. And I want to say that that's something I believe in my heart. And coming out as Sergeant Bluemling, if somebody worked in admin, for example, or HR or payroll or something like that, I think in society, in some ways, or veterans, we weren't validating them as much. I don't care what you did in the military. To me, if you serve this country, I tip my hat to you and I say, God bless you. God bless your family. And, I think that we need more of that, being humble. I learned about that, being Sergeant Bluemling, coming out of the military, high speed, low drag, I learned to be humble, man. That was like something that, in that growing up period of my life is that, what? Yeah, I'm Sergeant Bluemling, I did a lot of great things, but guess what? Somebody else did something too. So it's more about what the experience did that I can share with them versus what it did for myself.
Great point, right? Like you covered it perfectly. Like it's about serving others, continue to help serve even after you've hung up your boots. So we have a small segment at the end of the show about stacking wins, right? There's little victories every day that we have that sometimes go unnoticed. So what's the win that you're stacking right now?
The main thing right now is I'm trying to, get this new company started. I'm really happy about that. It's really exciting. I want to get back to what I love doing and working with the people. That's where you can make the change. That's where you can make a difference. And, I still have that vision in my mind as a 7 or 8 year old that, God put on my heart that I'm going to impact millions of people. So, I got my rucksack on, I got my boots strapped up, I took a year and some time off. I kind of disconnected from everything. So I really appreciate, the opportunity to come on and just like, kind of like my coming out party again on Got Your Six. And I'm out here, ready to put rounds down range, one shot, one kill, and make a difference. And I just love being around our veteran community. I just feel like, it brings you so much happiness and joy when you like, I love seeing veterans with a hat on that, that like their military assignation or the arena they served in, like whether it's Vietnam or something. I just love telling them, thank you for your service. And that makes me feel so good because, they're proud to wear that hat, to say, hey, I served in the Army or the Navy, or I did this, man. And I love telling them, man, thank you for your service. It's like a joy for me to do that. I feel great about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if people want to reach out to you, right? Is the Twitter coming back on? Where are people going to reach out and connect?
Well, right now, I'll be out there with the F-45 once I get all the contracts signed and get the location. I'm right now, it should be open by January 1 with the build out of the facility and everything like that. But right now I'm on Instagram. It's my Instagram handle is what is it? Let's think here. It's USA Spartan F-45. So that's what I got it at right now. USA Spartan F-45. I got my next Spartan race coming up in Indianapolis in September. Got a beast. I'm competing in a beast up there in the Midwest. I just did one in Dallas at AT&T Stadium, which was just unbelievable. Like that was like, I had done one at Washington National Stadium before. So I've been competing in Spartan races since 2015. And this will be my 15th one since then. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And also I got the Instagram handle. I started Hike with a Veteran. And that's something when I get some capital, I really want to invest into, because I think it's a very low entry point for veterans is to go on a hike. All you got to do is drive to a hike location. You got a map. Y'all know land nav from the military, and you try to get some community leaders and people around them just to go on a hike with them, learn their story, learn about them. And I think it's a great way for society to start to understand our veterans versus like, a lot of groups out there, veterans get together. Mighty Oaks Foundation, I went through that. There's a lot of great people in that organization, connected with them, went up to one of the wilds in Ohio. That was one of the things I did during that time. I was taking for myself, and I was learning more about myself, and I've always had a deep faith, so those things are really important to me. But when you get in there, it's a lot of veterans together, but we already know each other. Like if I met you on the street and I didn't know you after 2 minutes, if you had a good experience in the military, we'd get along really well, like we get along. And so, I think civilians, we need to get more civilians involved with what veterans are doing versus just putting a whole bunch of veterans together. You put a lot of vets together, but we still have to go into society. And if they don't know us, they don't know us. Right.
No, absolutely. And that's a huge part of what we do here on the Got Your Six podcast. You're also actively on LinkedIn as well. So,
absolutely. You could definitely, I'm connected with a lot of SEALs, a lot of Rear Admirals. Athletes. I think my LinkedIn's up to almost like 26,000 people. That's my main, like throughout this whole journey, that's one of the things that I've really grown. And I'm looking forward to posting a lot of F-45 stuff out there. I'm actually going to get certified and get my training. I'm going to be the head trainer. So I'm an owner operator starting out while I grow it. So, I love fitness, doing all my stuff, but, I've never done it like on the training side. And I don't think I would, other than owning the gym. So now I own the gym. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I can get in here and mix it up and motivate people on the floor. So that'll be definitely interesting. Usually I work out with a couple people. I'll train them like, just ad hoc, more like it,
Right. Michael Bluemling Jr., it was absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. And of course, thank you for having our six.
Absolutely. God bless you, man. God bless your audience, and God bless all the Patriots out there. Thank you.
I don't know what you've been told, Sixers, but the lawyers would like us to remind you that the views, opinions, and comments expressed on the Got Your Six podcast are solely those of the hosts or guests, to include current and previous Department of Defense employees, and should in no way be considered the opinions of or endorsements on behalf of the Department of Defense or any of its components, divisions, contractors, or other current and previous staff members.